Thank you, Renica. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Good afternoon, everybody. There we go. It's lovely to see so many good friends and to see some new faces. I'm looking forward to our 7 minutes and 50 seconds together, where I'll talk a little bit about early stage social entrepreneurship, but then we'll be excited to sit down with my fellow panelists and Renica to have a quick conversation, and we'll look forward to following up with some of you folks afterwards. So I'm going to advance this and take the privilege of being at this podium to share the good news that yesterday Echoing Green announced the 33 new social entrepreneurs who will be joining the Echoing Green community as 2016 fellows. They join a cadre of about 700 social entrepreneurs in the Echoing Green family, some of whom are here today, doing incredible social change work around the globe. And I'll share just a couple of the stories and models of some of these social entrepreneurs, because I think a number of you will recognize the work that you do in their stories and in their models. So we are super excited to welcome two incredible young leaders, Deanna and Kyle, into the community, and they started an organization called Designing Justice, Designing Spaces, which really does live within the model and paradigm shifting work of scholars like Michelle Alexander, who are really thinking very differently about how inequitable structures cause gross inequities across society. So they're actually looking at this through the lens of the built environment and are seeking to transform the lives of Black men and boys in their communities through innovations in architecture and real estate development. So imagine new models and new prototypes like peacemaking centers, mobile classrooms, new innovative housing models for foster age youth. We're really excited to be working with them. We continue to see a really interesting stream of social entrepreneurs who are taking on some of the greatest issues of our time, including climate change. We've got a dedicated climate fellowship that is bringing some really interesting tech solutions to the fore. So imagine if you had the ambition to put into the world a technology that could completely reverse atmospheric carbon to pre-industrial levels within a 20-year time frame. So one of the new 2016 fellows, Christine Sue, has started a company called Pasture Map that will empower ranchers to raise cattle on a healthy base of grasslands. It's a very simple usage of mobile records along with analytics that will help ranchers be more productive. And then last but not least, and again, I'm speaking to the choir here, right? Because many of you have devoted your professional lives to very deep social change work, and courage is a critical element of doing that work. Like a 2016 fellow, Charlene Wren, who has started a really interesting nonprofit called My H2O in China. And the notion of speaking truth to power to government forces, especially oppressive government forces, takes courage, grit, and resilience indeed. So for those of you who study that part of the world, China has long been troubled by water contamination and continuous emissions from industry, as well as a heavy application of agricultural fertilizers and pesticides are major contributors to a really serious deterioration of water quality. But the government has turned a blind eye and has refused to really publish water survey results and really has manipulated government data. They've obfuscated. And My H2O is going to be one of the first online crowdsourcing platforms on water issues in the country. So that's just a sense of some of the fellows who will join the Echoing Green community. So I encourage you all, please go to echoinggreen.org, take a look at some of the new models in our portfolio. There might be opportunities for collaboration, coordination, and we look forward to working with them in the years ahead. If you do take a look at the press release, my colleague who's here, Jana Oberdorf, our Vice President of Communications, I thought the press release title was terrific because it was Great Leaders Go Further in the Company of Great Leaders. Well said. And I think that speaks to the acceleration work that Echoing Green does as a social impact funder. So if you look at the fellows who are currently in Echoing Green's portfolio, within 1 year of our investment, they've gone on to raise 10x our initial investment in just that first year, and that goes to the hiring of FTE. So within 1 year of our investment, the workforce collectively has increased 10x times. Most importantly, within 1 year of funding collectively, the current class of Echoing Green Fellows will be serving around the world about 2.1 million constituents. So that's truly a leverage play. When you think about the small amount of money that Echoing Green puts to work each year in the social innovation field, the fact that for the $3.4 million we will put into the world for seed stage and early stage investments will be leveraged to about 34 million within a year gives you a sense of our scale proposition through a social impact acceleration model. And just to give you some highlights of the class of 2016, because I think it speaks to where the field of social innovation is going, and I'll be curious to interrogate with you all if you're seeing it as well. Certainly, this is one of the most diverse classes that we have ever selected in our organization's history. When you look at the work that, in particular, our Black Male Achievement Fellows are doing, just like you hear people talking about the level of innovation that is happening in municipal governments at the city level, so too do we see really interesting work happening at the levels of cities like Atlanta, the New York metro area, Detroit, Oakland, Philadelphia. And interestingly, and you can see the stat here, that for the first time in Echoing Green's history, the number of for-profit or hybrid social enterprises that we've backed has actually outstripped the number of nonprofits in our portfolio. And that aligns with what we see in our applicant pool as well, where now about 45% of our applicants each year are proposing for-profit and hybrid business models. That's been a steady uptick that we've seen since 2006. And we think it is a trend that's here to stay. And I'll say that Echoing Green has been formally participating in blended capital transactions since 2011, and we do that in two ways. So one is, for our for-profit and hybrid fellows, we provide them with recoverable grants or no-cost debt. And we also are increasingly beginning to provide capacity building supports to these for-profit and hybrid fellows. Our goal in doing so is that we're deeply committed to proving the case for investment opportunities, especially in emerging and frontier markets, as well as being deeply committed to making sure these companies get more investment ready. And again, there are a number of ways that we do it. I mentioned the recoverable grant tool that we use. In addition, just last week, we launched what we think is the first ever seed financing template called Seed It, which was created with and for our social entrepreneurs. And this new tool, this new financing mechanism, will offer social entrepreneurs an alternative to traditional debt financing. I can talk more about the Seed It note either after the session or during Q&A, but I really encourage you to check out our website to learn more about it. In addition, Echoing Green, as a global community, has begun to crowdsource the peer-to-peer learnings that we get from our fellows, providing checklists and manuals and toolkits that allow our fellows to get more investment ready. And I do think this peer-to-peer support model is something that this community of social entrepreneurs and many others should take into account. And I realize I've gone way over time, but there's much more to talk about, but I at least wanted to give you a taste of some of the tools at our disposal, which I'm super excited to share with you all offline. So thank you.